Hi there, grade fives. So this is our third video in the series about the module that you received at the beginning of the lockdown, and we are going to be looking at the third and the fourth exercises in that module. So let me open my screen to share it with all of you. There you go. All right. So for this exercise, I ask you to choose the correct word for each meaning. And you will see it is the same 4 words that you could choose from in each instance. And you had 4 different descriptions there. And you could use a process of elimination, maybe start with one you definitely know to try and figure out the meaning of these 4 words. So this was a vocabulary exercise, grade 5s, to build your vocabulary, introduce you to some new words. So let's first look at the 4 words that I gave you as an option at each question. These were complex, compare, explain, and modify. So those were your 4 words. Now let's look at the 4 definitions or explanations. The first one, to note or describe the similarities or differences of. Now if I look at that, to note or describe the similarities or differences of, the thing that draws my attention, the part of this explanation, is the similarities or difference. So I'm going to underline that. The next one says to make clear in speech or writing, to show in detail. And there the word clear is what's important to me. Number C, to change in some way, to alter. There the word change is important. And D, difficult to understand, the word difficult. So let's look at our 4 words. To note or describe the similarities or differences of. Complex, explain, compare, or modify. So when I look at 2 or more things and I look at how they are the same or how they are different, then what I am doing is I am comparing them. So the word there that refers to that definition, that fits that definition, is this word compare. That means to look at things and see how they are the same or how they are different. Their similarities and their differences. That is the word compare. The next one, to make clear in speech or writing. This one, to explain. This is what I'm doing. I am making the work hopefully clearer to you in speech, not necessarily in writing. I'm talking to you about it in more detail, and therefore I am explaining it to you. To change in some way, to alter. So the 2 words I haven't used yet is complex and modify. So to change in some way, to alter, the word here that I wanted is modify. To modify something means to change it. All right, and then difficult to understand is the word complex. If I find something difficult, then I find it complex. If I think of math problems, usually they start out nice and simple and easy, and I feel like I understand them. And then as you progress, it becomes more complex, more difficult to understand. So just some new words to add to your vocabulary, grade 5. So if you haven't come across these before, hopefully you will know them or recognize them when you do some English reading in the future. The next exercise, which is quite an important one for us in grade 5, was looking at types of nouns. Now, in order to look at nouns, we need to go back to understanding what is a noun. Now, grade 5s, you should know this. Verbs are doing words, action words in a sentence, and nouns are the thing in the sentence. A noun is a place or a person or a thing. So I gave you a little table here, or a little graphic illustration of different types of nouns. There are more than these, but these 4 I wanted you to focus on in this exercise. Common nouns, proper nouns, collective nouns, and abstract nouns. Now, common nouns are the most common, are the ones you come across most often, and you usually learn about these when you are first introduced to nouns in English. Around grade 3, grade 4, you definitely will be learning about common nouns. Table, chair, man, girl, dog, those are things I can see with my eyes. and I can touch them. They are physical. So those things are my common nouns. Then my proper nouns are usually very easy to identify because they have a capital letter. So that is not just a man, that is John. John has a name. So man would be the common noun, but when I ascribe his name to him and identify him as John, then that name is the proper noun because that is John's name. The same with cities or towns. When I talk about a town, then it is a common noun, but when I talk about Cape Town or Johannesburg, those are the proper nouns because now I'm ascribing their names to them and they start with a capital letter. So those two groups, fairly easy to distinguish. Then collective nouns, just as easy. It is when we take more than one noun, more than one thing, we put it in a group and then we call it something. For example, a swarm of bees. That is a collective noun for bees is a swarm. The collective noun for fish is a school of fish. You get shoes. You get a pair of shoes. If you put two matching shoes together, you have a pair. That is a collective noun. So those are also usually easy to identify. The nouns that are a bit more tricky are the abstract nouns because these nouns, that it does not refer to things we can touch necessarily or hold in our hands. We can still perceive them, but we perceive them in a more abstract way. I know that is maybe a little difficult concept to understand, but bear with me. So those are feelings like love or hate, emotions, hunger, freedom, intelligence. You can see the examples there. Those are abstract nouns. So that in the sentence, they don't have a function of a verb. You are not saying that the person is doing that, but it is in the position of a noun in the sentence, of a thing. But let's go through the example and see whether we can identify some of these in that piece that I gave you. So I told you to circle the nouns and then write them in that block for me. So let's start by identifying the common nouns because they are fairly easy to identify. So we can see in this first sentence, we can maybe, let's read it. That night, Kurt could not sleep at all. So maybe you could say night could be a common noun, or maybe you put it as an abstract noun. We can talk about it, but I would accept it as either a common noun or an abstract noun, but let's put it under common nouns for now. It's night. At night, Kurt could not sleep at all. The little boy, there's a very obvious common noun. It's the boy. Didn't dare close his eyes. Nice common noun for us there. At any moment, George could wake up and aim his tiny 8 eyes. There's another common noun, something we can see and touch with somebody's eyes. Shouldn't touch it, but you can see that's quite a straightforward common noun. Right onto Kurt, from where he was crouched behind a pair of shoes. So shoes would be a common noun. Those of you are saying, but Miss Fui, what about pair? We'll get to that when we get to the next set of nouns. In the open cupboard. So cupboard, again, just a straightforward common noun. Things had been like this since George crawled in through the bedroom window. Another nice example of common nouns there, bedroom and window. One night, while Kurt was happily reading his collection of stories about insects. So let's leave collection of stories for now and let's focus on the most obvious common noun, which is insects. His long, thin legs were just barely visible as Kurt pulled the duvet cover up under his chin. It was time to fetch the dew. So these are all examples of common nouns, grade 5s. They're quite straightforward. Let's take night away there. I don't want to confuse you. Let's just focus on the ones we can actually see and touch for now. So I would be happy if you identified the common nouns in this piece as boy, eyes, shoes, cupboard, bedroom window, insects, legs, duvet, cover, and chin. Let me know if you think I've missed any common nouns, but wait until the end. Maybe I'm covering it under one of the other nouns. So, in the first sentence, let's go to proper nouns. Now, those are usually, like I said, easy to identify. We just look for all the capital letters, except for the ones that start off a sentence. That's not necessarily a proper noun, hey? All sentences start with a capital letter. So, in that first sentence, we can immediately see the name there, Kurt. So, let's make that a different color. Kurt could not sleep at all. The second sentence, little boy didn't dare close his eyes at any moment. George, another proper noun. George could wake up and aim his tiny 8 eyes right onto Kurt. You will see here that I have made a little line under his. The reason I did that, grade 5s, is because some smarty pants boy or girl in grade 5 might have noticed that his is also a noun, but it is not a common noun, a proper noun, an abstract noun, or a collective noun. It is, in fact, a pronoun. So I did not expect you to necessarily circle his in this in this piece, because I didn't ask you to identify pronouns. But just so you remember, in that sentence, instead of saying at any moment, George could wake up and aim George's tiny 8 eyes, we use the word his in the place of the proper noun, and then we call it a pronoun. But I think we have an exercise on pronouns a bit later in the module, if I'm not mistaken. So for those of you who notice that his is also a type of noun, it is a pronoun, well done. But for the purposes of this exercise, if you didn't, don't worry about it. We'll get to it. All right, his tiny 8 eyes right onto Kurt, from where he was crouched behind a pair of shoes. Now that word pair, or even if you took that whole phrase pair of shoes and you wrote it under collective nouns, that would have been fine, because a pair is a collective noun for a pair of shoes, 2 shoes that match with a pair of shoes. All right, in the open cupboard. Things have been like this since, okay, so we've already written George crawled in through the bedroom window one night while Kurt, we've already got Kurt, was happily reading his collection of stories about insects. And there's another Kurt I see. And then the last one, it was time to fetch the doom, as we all know here in South Africa, doom and raid, and we've got our insect killing sprays that we can use. Doom is the proper noun, the name of a certain brand of insect killer. So therefore it is a proper noun. Okay, I think that covers our proper nouns. Again, if you think I've missed any or you're not sure, then send me a WhatsApp. Now let's do the collective nouns. Pair of shoes. Sorry, I jumped the gun there a bit, didn't I? With pair of shoes, there's a collective noun, and were you able to spot any other collective nouns? A collection of stories. You could have put this, the stories, under a common noun, or if you put it under a collective noun, that's fine. It would actually have been more appropriate to say a series, because a series is a collection of stories, but I will accept collection of stories as a collective noun there if you put that phrase there. Then the last one, abstract nouns. All right, so let's see if we can identify any abstract nouns in this piece. I'm just thinking. Maybe that night, we said night could possibly be, if you wanted to do that, or make an argument for night being an abstract noun. Sleep, the verb in the sentence could not, that would be the verb. So the sleep could be an abstract noun, the condition of sleeping as a thing, or rather, no, not the condition of sleeping. Let me rather say when sleep is talked of as a thing, it is something that cannot be identified, be identified as sleep. Sleep is a thing that is done. So usually more a verb than an abstract noun. The little boy didn't dare close his eyes. At any moment, George could wake up and aim his tiny 8 eyes right onto Kurt, from where he was crouched behind a pair of shoes in the open cupboard. So crouched, girls and boys, crouched is what a tiger or a leopard does just before it jumps out. It usually sits back on its hind legs. You can also hide behind something, crouching, sitting back on your hind legs, making yourself a bit smaller, getting ready to pounce possibly, or just hiding, a crouching position, usually on the back of the legs. Behind a pair of shoes in the open cupboard, Things had been like this since George crawled in through the bedroom window one night while Kurt was happily reading his collection of stories. So there's night again. So let's add night to our abstract nouns. Long thin legs were just barely visible as Kurt pulled the duvet cover up under his trim. It was time to fetch the doom. So time can also be an abstract noun. Time as a thing, time as a concept, time goes by slowly. All right, so abstract nouns, just for you to be aware of their existence, something to be thinking of. But if you were able to identify all the common and the proper and the collective nouns in that piece, then well done you. You did a great job. Okay, grade 5. So I really hope that this helped a little bit. Again, if you're unsure about anything, if you disagree about anything, if you want me to explain something more, send me a WhatsApp. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.